What's up, everybody? It's Tommy Runs, and this is the Run, Eat, Sleep Show, episode number 78. Today, we have a man who is absolutely on fire, and he's been setting tracks on fire for the last year or so. We have Joe Klecker on the show today. Joe Klecker has performed at the Olympics, 16th place in the 10,000 meter. Just recently took the U.S. champion. He's the U.S. championship holder for the 2,000 meter, and we're going to be seeing him in Eugene for Worlds very shortly. Joe is an on running athlete, and he's also a member of the OAC, that's On Athletics Club. I'm really excited to talk to Joe today. But big shout out before we bring him on to UCAN, who is the sponsor of the episode today. UCAN is a nutrition company that's been doing really great things lately, and has kind of changed how the way that some people look at fueling. They really provide this really cool, slow, steady release of energy throughout the workout, throughout the day. They stabilize your blood sugar levels so that you can continue to perform without caffeine and sugar and all those crashes and all that stuff. So look forward to the end of this episode. We're going to give away a marathon training bundle, so stay tuned to that. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to this podcast and to the live and the YouTube and all that good stuff. So with no further ado, I'm sure you don't really want to hear from me anymore. We have Joe Klecker on the show. How's it going, Joe?
It's going good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. No problem, man. I really do appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule, because you're in like full training mode right now, right?
Yeah, no, I just came from training, had a run this morning, a lift and a massage, and then more recently just got back from racing overseas. So it's been definitely a busy couple weeks, and it's probably the busiest time of the year with training, racing, traveling all over. So yeah, it's sometimes hard to get a spare hour to sit down and chat.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, yeah, I do. I really do appreciate that. I mean, especially right now, it's like everything is all focused in on Worlds right now, and I'll try to fight the urge to talk about like Oslo and everything that's happening right now, and kind of go back a little bit to give people some background of. And most people know who you are right now, but just to kind of give some of the listeners that may not know a little bit of background on your history and what running has kind of how running's played a role in your life. Like, when did running become like? When did you start running? When did it become a thing? How early in life was it for you?
Yeah, so I started running probably in like more seriously in seventh grade once I got into middle school. Both my parents were competitive runners in their day, and so it was definitely something that I was surrounded by kind of my whole life was running. And so I knew once I got to middle school, I wanted to join the track team, cross country team, and start to pursue some goals. But yeah, and then I have five siblings in my family, and all of my older siblings ran as well. So it kind of just made sense to follow in their footsteps and join the cross country team with them. It made it really easy for my parents, getting us to practice and
All right.
whatnot.
Yeah.
All going to the same races and meets. So
Well,
that was kind of my start.
very considerate of you as a kid to say, you know what, just I'll jump in there too. It's just so you can drop me off in the same place. So when you started off running, how did that play? Like, when did you realize like you were fast? Like, when did it say, like, when does that light bulb click and figure out like, hey, maybe if I keep going with this, it could be something fun or fast or whatever?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that early on, I realized I maybe had a lot of potential in the sport. I
Mhm.
really always compared myself to other people of my age, and so I was always kind of comparing, the times I would run to, other seventh graders around the state and other seventh graders around the country. And so I always kind of, because I say I'm like a seventh grader racing in a varsity race, you're racing people who might be 5 years older than you, and so it's kind of hard to
Mm.
match up with them. But if you're comparing yourself to people of your similar age back then, that really motivated me. And
Oh,
so
wow.
then every year, eighth grade, then ninth grade, I was just kind of comparing against people of my similar age, and I just kept getting better and better. But that really motivated me to work harder. And then, by the time you get into 10th grade, you're able to compete with pretty much anyone in high school. And so but early on, that was definitely my focus because it can be demoralizing. You're in a junior varsity race, and there's, you might be in seventh, eighth grade, and there's people who are in, their senior year of high school, and
Yeah.
to compete with them, it's just, you're if you're physically in much different spots, and so yeah, just comparing myself to similar ages, people around the state really helped me stay motivated.
Well, I mean, that's actually really interesting that like I mean, I'm sure more people do it than not, but just to hear you say like, hey, if when you're in a varsity meet, it's like you're competing against people that are just much farther along in the journey than you are, and it can be pretty tough to see like somebody go whizzing past you. And just for like the normal person, like for me, like I'll be in a marathon or like a half marathon or any race, in particular, and then just say there's someone that goes past you or someone that leaves, in the beginning. You don't know where that person is in their journey. It's a little easier, early on, like in high school and middle school ages, to see that someone's older. But like I think that's something cool that we could all kind of take from and say, hey, we don't know where someone else is, and there's no need of comparing. Like, so find where your level is, and then kind of compare from there and see where you stack up.
Mhm.
So I just thought that was interesting that you were wise enough to say like, hey, let me not compete with the seniors here. Let me compete with who, at my level.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally made it much more approachable because, in every other sport, you're usually competing against people of your age group. You don't really, you
Yeah.
know, join the football team and all of a sudden you're,
Yeah.
a seventh
Playing
grader.
high school.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's all how I always looked at it. You got to kind of compete against the people who are, at your similar
Right.
level, experience level and everything.
It's probably pretty safe though to not throw like seventh graders in with like the high school football team. I think that that's probably best.
Yeah, no,
We-
I think that's a good way to do it, and and I don't think that would end very well. They wouldn't be able to compete very well.
And so as you went through middle school, yeah, I heard an interview somewhere where like where your mileage by the time like upper high school levels, like junior senior, you were like at 70 miles, 70 miles a week. And I'm really interested to see like at what point did seventh grader that's kind of competing and comparing himself to other seventh graders around the country, how did that progression look for you, and like how long did it take you to get to 70 miles a week, and how did that, you're young, so it's a while ago now, but
Yeah.
how did that feel and change, and how did you work through that?
Yeah, so I would say that over the summer, a lot of my training was just self-coached, and so, um, how it works in Minnesota, at least, the coaches aren't really able to work with you kind of in the off season, which I
Okay.
think is kinda nice, so you can kinda do your own thing. It's
Yeah.
not too structured, and so actually 1 week in 7th grade, I really wanted to try and run, 70 miles. It was like 10 miles a day. It just seemed like something that would be fun to try and do, and so I would just go out and run 5 miles in the morning and then 5 miles at night, but it was really loose, like, I mean, there were probably weeks where I ran 70, 75 miles in high school, but it was like more just kind of, it wasn't like really structured, it was
Mhm.
like I would get up and feel good and go run, 8 miles. If I felt better, I'd run 12 miles.
Mhm.
And then, some days if I didn't feel good, I would just go jog a few. My big thing was just over the summer to try and run every day. Um, we'd meet with the team like unofficially, without the coaches. We would just kind of have a good group of guys. But yeah, so I would, working my way up to 70 miles, I guess, was just, something in the summer, you're
Okay.
bored. It's just like something to work towards, and it gave you a good sense of accomplishment too. And that's honestly, over the summer was just like really rewarding because otherwise I would just go like sit at the lake all day or something and kind of feel like I'm not really doing much because I wasn't in
Yeah.
school or anything. But then running really gave me those goals I could achieve, like, I had this hill workout I would do. I just, run up this hill by my house and, say I would do it 6 times. Well, then in a few weeks, if I was going to do it, I'd want to try and do it 7 times. And so you just had these little goals that you would work towards. And then, yeah, then you look back at it and you're like, wow, I ran, 70 miles this week or 75 miles. And you feel a good sense of accomplishment. But it definitely wasn't like this totally like mastermind training plan that I was
Yeah.
following. It was very just like spur of the moment and just, hopping in runs with friends. I remember one day, me and one of my buddies, we wanted to try and run 20 miles
Mhm.
and we only made it 17. But I remember at one point, like we stopped and we saw like our coach, walking out of a coffee shop or something. And we just talked to him for maybe like 20, 30 minutes in the middle of the run and then kept going. So it wasn't like this, again, it
Right.
was just one of those goals you could kind of chase after,
Yeah.
and feel a sense of accomplishment, but it wasn't like just this really structured system we were in.
I mean, I think that that's awesome though. I mean, because I mean, you're in 7th grade trying to do this, like, in my son's in 6th grade or going to 7th, and my daughter's in going to 10th grade. So like, I'm gonna go after this interview. I'm gonna go talk to them and say, hey, you guys got to run more. Like, Joe Klecker was doing this. He was running 70 miles a week for fun. You guys got to get to it. So like, you weren't. So were other kids? I mean, I know you said that you were meeting up with other kids, like, in the school with, on your team, but were you like the only one kind of throughout the time that was just had your own little thing that you were just trying to do, like run every day in the summer, try to run 10 miles a day? Was that something you were kind of just doing on your own, or did like a group of you kind of rally around that?
Yeah, I would say we definitely had like a kind of a good core group of runners, and
Hmm.
I would say everyone kind of had their own little goals, like how many miles they wanted to run over the summer, or like
Hmm.
things they wanted to accomplish. And so we definitely had like a little group that would meet up probably 4 days a week, and
Yeah.
then kind of go out and tackle these goals because it was nice. We weren't racing over the summer. It was like you could really just kind of enjoy running in that sense. Like you had 2 or 3 months where it was just you say, okay, today we're going to do a hill workout, and you might not know what that's going to be, but you just kind of piece it together and figure
Yeah.
it out. And that was always kind of fun. But yeah, we had it where I went to high school. We had a definitely a good culture of running, and certainly a good like core group of guys that would want to meet up and at 8
Yeah.
a.m. on a
Yeah.
Sunday day. So
Yeah, you guys are crazy. I mean, back in high school, like it's on the weekend for sure. Never getting up past before like 9, 10 o'clock. But yeah, so I think that that's really cool that it speaks to just like how important it can be, especially in running and in life in general, like how important it can be to find a group of people that really have similar goals and want to be better at a thing that you also want to be better at. So and I think during the pandemic we realized like how much like team environment or a group of people to go run with and share stories and miles with is just how important that really can be.
hmm Oh, totally.
Yeah, for
'Cause everyone
sure.
has different goals. I mean, even the guys that we're running with. I mean, I certainly had goals to be the best I could be. But a lot of the guys that we were running with, they never wanted to be, professional athletes or even running college. It was
Yeah.
just, and I almost admire that more, that they just would still go out there and do it just because, it was, they got that good sense of accomplishment or they enjoyed the camaraderie of the team.
Hmm.
Um, but it wasn't like they had goals to be an Olympian or goals to, at that level. So I always like that.
Yeah, hats off to them, man. It's just like just getting in 70-mile weeks and just because of you guys must have been some really great company for sure.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you better have a really good story for me if we're doing 70-mile weeks just because.
Yeah.
And so like as when did that like that's got to play a big role into like how the transition. I mean, because I know you had a pretty good high school career, did well, went to college, but how did those big miles that you were doing just because from like 7th grade till through high school, how did that play a role in you transitioning from like that 70, 80 mile high school career to what you had to do in college?
Yeah, it definitely made it less intimidating. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's you look at, like, where I went to school at Colorado, and I mean, there's people running 100 miles a week or even more, and so when you're coming out of high school, that's pretty intimidating, but for me to think, "Okay, I'm already running, 70," and you can kinda see that logical progression to, increasing your training load.
Mhm.
So I think that's one way it helped, but certainly along the way, I mean, I had a lot of injuries and, like, my desire to run was maybe more than my body could handle. And
Right, right.
so, I ran into injuries and stuff too because of that, which is, that's obviously a bummer because you want to just be out there running and enjoying it, but then you get injured and you can't run at all.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the biggest thing was just being able to look at what I was going to have to do in college for training and seeing how it could, how I could mold into that eventually.
Mhm. And so like when you came in, like was there other people, other high yeah, people coming into the team just that were like really scared of this 100 miles that like 'cause were they at like 40s and 50s and you're much
Yeah.
closer?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, not just the mileage, but the intensity of the mileage, being at altitude. There are a
Mhm.
lot of factors that people, yeah, they were definitely intimidated, and some people just couldn't handle it. The transition was too
Yeah.
big.
Right.
And you're only in, university for 4 years, maybe 5 years, and so the coaches definitely want to kind of get you on that fast track to getting ready to race at the college level. And so it's not like
Mhm.
you have endless amount of time. And so yeah, certainly people couldn't handle that transition, but those who could, I mean, at CU definitely were able to run really competitively at the collegiate level.
Right. And what year did you graduate, Joe?
I graduated 2020.
2020. So after this really solid career, or your cross country campaign too, you go to 2020 and go pro in like the weirdest year ever.
Mhm.
So just talk to me about that. I mean, because you were kind of in the beginning of this OAC team, and I'd love to hear more about like in the beginning stages, like what that was like going pro. First off, obviously it's a big deal for you,
Mhm.
but then also to get in like kind of ground level on something that seemed like it was going to be really cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, it was a very just weird time to be a runner, a weird time to be in college, and so there's just uncertainty with everything. But
Mm.
yeah, I was very fortunate that On kind of reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we're looking to start this team," because I knew a lot of runners who were similar level to me, and they really had no options. And
Mm.
with the uncertainty at the time, a lot of brands weren't signing runners, and so the fact that On had kind of committed to wanting to sign me was really big. And I
Mhm.
was really, I didn't take that for granted. Like they put a lot of faith in me as a runner,
Yeah.
and so I was very fortunate in that sense. But even still, it was like not my initial plan. I never would have thought like I would be not only joining a new team, but kind of being at the ground level of a new team. I was very happy with my college coaches, and I really would have loved to just stay with them and keep doing what I was doing. It was very comfortable, and I was seeing improvements every year. But when I realized like that wasn't an option, On said, "Hey, if we're going to sign you, we want to start this team." And so
Okay.
I kind of had to take this leap of faith with On, and we had to look at hiring a coach, look at bringing in a team around me, and obviously the results now are just like nothing we could have imagined, and so things have worked out very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a really weird time. I mean, it was just On was moving super fast with everything. They wanted to sign me, they wanted to sign some other runners. They signed Dathan, who was living in Michigan at the time, and he sold his house and moved out really quick, and so everything was just happening so fast. um, but and so it's like you're in the midst of this, like all these changes. You're used to, in college it was just the same every year, and then in the span of a few months, it was just everything was changed. It was certainly just like a whirlwind, but um, things really fell into place in a great way. And I think that just goes back to On, hiring the right people,
Right.
getting the right system in place. But yeah, being on the ground floor was just incredible. I mean, just to see how much On has grown. Actually, just when we were in Zurich this past week, we went to the headquarters, and just to see how much like the headquarters they were in when I signed, and then the headquarters they just moved into, it's like 10 times the size. So
Yeah.
like not just our team, but as a brand, they've grown a lot, and so it's really cool to be a part of that.
So when you were in the beginning stage of this, I mean, they hadn't even hired Dathan yet.
Yeah, they were in like talks of a few coaches, and then that was kind of one of my things. I was like, well, I need to like know who the coach is going to be if I'm going to join this team, and so they kind of gave me a little bit of power to help interview some of the coaches and kind of have a say in who is going to be coaching the team.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that gave me a lot of faith in On as a brand, that they were like giving me that power to kind of
Right.
help choose the coach. And
Right.
so yeah, Dathan wasn't even like here yet. And then pretty shortly after I signed, though, we narrowed it down to him because he was just a great energy, and like he seemed the most excited about taking the job. And I think at this level, like if you're not excited about it, I mean, it's such a commitment that
Yeah.
you would fizzle out pretty quick.
And I mean, obviously he has a pretty good name in running too, so it's like that kind of helps a little bit.
Mhm.
And he had a I mean, he has somewhat of I guess a similar comparison to your career as well, or like the type of runner you are, so that probably played a role into you kind of leaning in his direction.
Totally. I mean, he ran at CU as well and had the same
Mhm.
coach as me, and so there was a lot of comfort early on,
Yeah.
choosing him as a coach, because I think he was going to be the best person to guide my transition from Colorado to professional. Just because
Mhm.
he knew exactly what I was doing at Colorado. He went through the same transition in his day, and he was telling me like he made a lot of mistakes in that transition, and those are mistakes he would like help me avoid. And I
Yeah.
think that that's been one reason that our team has been so successful so quick, is that he's helped us avoid a lot of mistakes. You know, like there's a lot of things we might want to do, and he kind of steers us the other way just because, you know, maybe it's a mistake he made in his career.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I heard an interview you say something like, that he, because of his experience, and, trying to steer you all in the right direction. Specifically, I think you were just talking about yourself, but there's some races where you felt like you're really fit for, you wanted to go after a certain time, you wanted to go after 13.
Mm.
And he's like, well, you have this coming up, and even though it seems like it's enough time, here's where I went wrong, here's what I did, and you kind of follow it along. So it's definitely two-sided, where he has to share, obviously have the experience, but then for you to be able to hear it, and
Mm.
because you still could have pushed through, I guess, and tried
Yeah.
to go after that, but you ran the race within that within the goal.
Mhm. Totally, yeah, there's been a lot, and not even just that one instance. I mean, there's been, even like when I was in Europe just now, I ended up getting into a race in Rome that was a super competitive race that I would have loved to do, and Statham's just like, "Look, this isn't gonna be in your best interest, like, the travel is just gonna
Oh,
be too
really?
wearing on your body." And looking back, I mean, it was the total right decision, but a month ago, like, I wanted to run that Rome race no matter what, and
Mhm.
so it's funny, like some of these things he steered me clear of, I look back on and I think, wow, like if I would have been, you know,
Yeah.
making all the decisions, I would have made a lot of mistakes. And I don't think that I would be, you know, have qualified now for the Olympics and then the World Championships if I had made these mistakes. Just because US running is at such a high level that those mistakes add up, and those little things here and there, you know, start to impact your training, start to impact your racing, and you
Mhm.
really got to be kind of dialed in.
And then, so for you to, um, I just lost my total train of thought. But so when you were out there, oh, that's what it was. So if for coaching wise, I mean, you've obviously had a coach for quite a long time, and it's worked for you to go from high school to college, and luckily your college to professional transition of a coach is kind of the similar feel, because it was kind of in the same school of thought, which is
Mhm.
great. But how important, like, has do you feel like it is for, like, just say like the average runner who is just going after the first half marathon or the full or whatever race it is? How important do you feel like a coaching is, because you've also gone kind of self-coached through the summers, but
Mhm.
how important do you think it is for an amateur to have like some type of structure like that so they can bounce ideas off of?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important just in the sense of, like, you're having someone, like, overlooking all your training, overlooking what you're doing because, you know, you're kind of in it, you know, like, and as an athlete, you're always kind of wanting to do more or maybe a little bit unsure of what you're doing, and
Right,
just
right,
even to have that reassurance of what you're doing, that someone else thinks it's the right thing,
right,
um, is, like, super important. Because I would say most of coaching is really just believing in what you're doing. And so if
right.
you know, if you believe in the workouts your coach is giving you or the plan your coach has, you're much more likely to feel confident and ready to perform on race day.
Hmm.
Where if you're, you know, showing up to the track and thinking, you know, should I do 8 times 800 today or should I do 6 times 800?
Right.
And you don't know, like you don't want to cut the workout short, but you also don't want to like overdo it. Where if you had a coach, you know, who could kind of bounce your ideas off, it just gives you a lot of confidence, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I mean, because it's always nice to hear coming from a pro. I mean, even though you have coaches, you would think that I'm an amateur runner, so I don't need one. Like, there's no point. I could just look up a training plan online and download it or whatever for free and just go through it. But that, like, objective look at what's really going on from a because we're just so close to it. We're so close to,
Mhm.
like, you really wanted to do that race,
Yeah.
and most of the other runners would probably say, "Yeah, man, you're fit. Go do it."
Mhm.
But for someone to, like, have like your interest in mind for the long term, or even just for the next month,
Mhm.
is just really cool to have someone say like, "Hey, don't worry about doing," or even on from a workout standpoint. I'm sure that there's times when Dathan's like, "Hey, I want you to hit these numbers, but because of this, if you're not feeling it, just pull back a little bit." Like those little things, that those subtle changes that kind of help us in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, and I even have some, like, a lot of friends who are amateur runners, and they might not currently have a coach, but they'll bounce ideas off me and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is my goals. Like, what do you think about this workout? And just to even, just to get some assurance or some guidance is like
Mhm.
super helpful. And so even if they're not like your full-time coach, just someone that you can even bounce ideas off occasionally, I think is super helpful and can give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to go necessarily pay for a coach, but just to have like that solid community of people that really want to see you do well in the long term.
Hmm.
I think that that's a huge thing. And like I said, in 2020, there's so many of us that were just maybe solo runners or whatever, and barely kind of. But after the pandemic, it seems like everybody's like, "Hey, let's get together, let's talk,
Hmm.
let's share these miles." And that's also where like some of the help comes in, where people can bounce ideas and thoughts of injury prevention, stuff like that. And you kind of talked about injury a little bit, a little earlier. And I'd love to hear, because I know you're injured not too long ago. Actually, it was like a year or so ago now. You kind of got through an injury.
Yeah, I got through an injury in December. I started,
December.
yeah, right about the early in the year. I started training back on the ground again. But yeah, kind of around Christmas time, I was dealing with I had a stress reaction in my foot. But over the years, I've definitely had a number of injuries I've had to work through.
So and I know, and Dathan's had in his career, he had some injuries kind of play kind of off and on. How
Mhm.
has like how what advice has he given you in that injury prevention lane that you feel like has been helping you? Because December seems like a really long time ago for some reason. Like it just seems like a year ago, a full year. But in the last 6 months, you've done a lot, and you've been racing quite a bit. What has he told you that you could kind of share with us that kind of has been helping you in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I would say, initially when I got the injury, like with anything, you're really bummed out just because you kind of have this ideal season, this ideal race schedule in your head planned out, and then you just have to totally, pivot away from that. And then so after the first few days of just kind of being very down about the injury, um, Dathan and I, we talk and just kind of like, it's your injury is kind of the reality of, what's going on right now. You can't hide it. You gotta respect it and let it heal. And so then we kind of turn our focus to, what can we keep doing every day that's going to help us get better. Obviously
Mm,
I can't run, but I can go to the weight room. I can go do like yoga, mobility.
yoga's good.
There's a lot of things you can do to um, get better as an athlete, even mentally. Just visualizing racing. A lot of times I'd be in the pool, aqua jogging. I would just close my eyes and kind of visualize that I was in a race, and things like that can really help you as an athlete and make you a lot better. So when you do come back to running, you're stronger mentally, stronger physically, and really hungry to get after it. And so that was my focus when I was injured, was just like, what can I do every day to keep improving as an athlete? And then once I was finally back, then it's the reality of, you were so fit before the injury, and aerobically, physically, you can't just jump right into that level of training again. You got to work back
Yeah,
up to it,
yeah.
weight bearing again. And so then it's just kind of trusting the process of getting back into shape and respecting that process and not overdoing anything that you're going to get injured again. And so once I was back to running again, it was just taking it a day at a time and thinking, every day, if I can do the right training, not overdo it, not overstep it, I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. And you keep
Mhm.
stacking those days and that consistency. And then all of a sudden you're doing workouts that you were maybe doing right before your injury. And you're thinking, now I'm back. Like
Yeah.
your training is back to that level. And then kind of the last piece of that, getting back from the injury for me was actually stepping out and racing and setting a PR, which certainly isn't always going to happen in your first race after an injury. Um, but that was kind of like the final piece for me to kind of put that injury behind me and realize like I'm through with it and I can look forward to the rest of the summer. Um, but being able to do that took just focusing every day and every step of that injury process, trying to do it the best I could. It
Mhm.
wasn't just like sitting back for 6 weeks and letting it heal and then, kind of doing things half heartedly. It was like really kind of focus, like really analyzing every day, like what do I need to be doing to get back and to get better. And so Dathan's really good at it. He's been injured a lot. And so he's really able to advise kind of the workouts I should be doing, like on the bike and in the pool, that can give me confidence that I'm at least maintaining some level of fitness.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the weight room and the mobility stuff was kind of self-guided, just knowing that I have weaknesses as a runner. And
Mhm.
now that I'm not running, 100 miles a week, I
Right.
have a lot of time in the day to work on those weaknesses that I know I have.
Yeah. No, I think that was so well put, and I loved like every step of that because it is we do tend to if we're hurt we just obviously you don't want to put too much weight or stress on the issue. Obviously find workouts that work for you, workouts that don't aggravate the issue and prolong the recovery. But once you do that research and figure out like what things can you do, like I'm huge on like control the controllables. So like you can't run, you can't crush that workout right now, but what can you control that you can add to your day? And for most the amateurs out there, I mean, yours is a little more intense. You're a professional, and you need to. Your main goal is to be as prepared as possible.
Mhm.
On the day you can get back to running. But even on the amateur level, that's what we would like to have happen as well. And even if you get back to it and you say, you start off slowly and you're increasing miles slowly is you just don't want to you just don't want to get re-injured, and all that work that you did allowed you to ease back into it with confidence that you did a lot of work to support that issue.
Mhm.
And I just think that that's incredible because that's what we do. We sit back, we don't do anything, we kind of take the time to do other stuff, which we should, like life stuff, that's great,
Mhm.
but then we get back to running and we go crazy and then we're hurt in a different way,
Yeah,
like it may not be the same issue.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so like when you are back from injury and you're feeling good and you're out there on workouts, like how do you trust so you have so much riding on being healthy. How do
Mhm.
you trust the that the issue? Like so you have a stress fracture in your foot. Like I guess I don't really know what the question is, but like as a runner, it's sometimes hard to trust that you're okay. Like
Yeah, no,
what yeah.
I 100% know where you're coming from. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
really trust that your body is back and trust that you can do the training.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, honestly, sometimes when I was coming back, I would have a great day of training and I would just be sitting there thinking like, you know, is the next injury just creeping up on me?
Mhm.
Like, and kind of just thinking like, wow, like things are going really good right now, but is there like another injury that's just around the corner that maybe I don't know about right now? And I would say that the way that I usually calm that anxiety is to do some prehab or put that energy instead of focusing on like worrying about another injury, like doing like the little things right, doing some extra like rolling or doing some activations before my run. And that kind of gives me like confidence that I'm doing the little things right to keep my body healthy.
Yeah.
Because yeah, when everything's going good and you're feeling great and you're crushing workouts, I mean, it's awesome, but you can kind of get you can kind of start to neglect some of those little things that you
Yeah.
had to do, coming back from injury to keep you healthier, to get you back from injury.
Right.
And so I would say that, yeah, like trying to keep some of that stuff in your routine, or also like trying to remember, like think of your injury, and maybe you don't know exactly why you got injured or how you got injured, but maybe you have some ideas of, I was really tired, I wasn't getting enough sleep, and I
Mhm.
was really stressed out, and
Yeah.
trying to control some of that stuff a little bit. Like, I know for me, my injury in December, I got it right around Christmas time. I was traveling. I was trying to fit these workouts in. My nutrition wasn't great at the time, just with being super busy. And so I've been like, one way I've been able to trust like my body and trust that I'm back able to train now is really dialing in my nutrition
Mhm.
and just knowing that I'm fueling properly and my body has everything it needs to recover. And um, that just lets me know, like when I go out and train, I should be able to do it and not get injured,
Mhm.
versus like, yeah, running into that just like energy deficiency and
Yeah.
um, stuff that can happen when it's the holidays and you're
Yeah,
traveling.
yeah, yeah. Well,
But
we know. And when you said nutrition, I mean, when we're prior to at one point where you was your nutrition kind of like all over the place normally, and as you've gotten more professional about it, like has it changed and what's it look like now?
yeah, so I would say nutrition is something for me that I always kind of put on the back burner. I really
Mhm.
just didn't really focus on it until this injury. I kind of just, there was no rhyme or reason. It was just like eat whatever, do whatever, like I've been fine to this point. I've never really
Yeah,
had to focus on it.
yeah,
But once I got this injury, I really thought, and I was like, I think that I got this injury because of not fueling properly, not getting in the right nutrition. And so I just tried to like create good routines with my nutrition, making sure I'm getting in proper fuel before my run, proper fuel after, and just like creating good routines with everything. Because then when, say, you travel to a race and you get knocked out of that routine for a few days, at least
mhm,
if you had a really consistent, routine for those weeks and weeks leading up to it, you're probably going to be all right. But if you're
yeah,
just kind of all over the place all the time, and like ordering DoorDash for lunch, and like it's just really hard, like sometimes to get in like the fuel you need. And so, like you were saying, kind of controlling the controllables, it's easy when you're at home in your routine to kind of control what you're eating in the
yeah.
morning, control what you're eating for lunch, control your fueling during your workout. Those are the controllables. And then, yeah, when you go to racing and traveling, then it gets a little out of whack. But as long as when you can control it, you control it. I think that's been what's really helped me.
Yeah. No, no, I love that because it's like life does happen. So you just sometimes you just have to roll with what you got. But
Mhm.
those moments when you are kind of at you got your hands on the steering wheel, so to speak. Those are the times when you really want to like dial in and make sure that you're doing everything you can to just on a day to day, just feel as good as you can. Not even when it comes to running, you don't, just in life in general, you want to be able to control something, in if it's nutrition or rest or whatever or all of it, then
Mhm.
that's just the direction we got to go. Um, so after you turn pro in 2020, things are rolling. You're racing, and you talk to me about like that process of like when did you qualify? What I think you where did you qualify for the Olympics? And then just talk to me a little bit about like that process.
Yeah, so right when I signed, it was during the pandemic, that
Hmm.
spring of 2020. And so I kind of had like a good few months where there was a little bit of racing going on, but it was all pretty low key. And so I
Hmm.
had a good amount of time to really adjust to the new coaching system, kind of adjust to life as a professional runner, and like, what I need to do to get to that next level. So I didn't sign my contract and had to go out and like try and make the Olympic team 2 weeks later, like a lot of people
Yeah.
do in normal years. And so yeah, I signed in that like April timeframe of 2020, and then the next year in June of 21 was when I had the Olympic trials, and that was, I had to get top three to make the team, and then a month prior to that, I had to hit the Olympic Games standard in the 10K. So I really had about a year before I had to go out and try and make that Olympic team, and that was I don't. There's no way I would have made the Olympic team in 2020. I just was not at a level to do so. And so having that year of preparation to adjust to the coaching, adjust to the professional running was super important for me. But yeah, so I made the team in 21, then go to Tokyo, and then I had a great summer of racing, um, and then had my injury in December, and then now it's kind of all back. You do it again. I had the
Yeah.
trials this year was in May to qualify for the World Championships in July. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's just kind of like you keep
Keep
rolling.
going.
It's
Yeah.
very other than the pandemic making things kind of all out of whack for my first year as a pro. Everything's been it's just kind of like the same old. You have your
Yeah.
trials, you have your world championship, and you got some high level races you hope to do, and then you take some downtime and you do it again.
And so there's two really big moments that like kind of that obviously stand out in the last year or so, which is you qualifying for the Olympics at the trials, and then fast forward to the race that you needed to qualify for Worlds in Eugene this year. Those are two big moments, obviously, in your career,
Mhm.
and hearing knowing that on started this with you in mind and few others, but were you very early in the process, like how does it feel when you cross that finish line in 2021 to qualify for Japan? How did that feel, like crossing that line knowing that you were supported by On and all that?
Yeah. So I mean, like obviously for a lot of personal reasons, it was like such a huge goal to make the Olympics. But in terms of On as a sponsor, I mean, just knowing how much stock they put into me
Yeah.
and how much they believed in me as a runner to do that straight away to make the Olympic team really just shows like what I was doing is working. What we're doing as a team here is working. Um, and yeah, I mean, like when they're believing in you, you got to hold up your end of the bargain.
Yeah.
Like you want to go out there and perform. And like I would say, it's a smaller brand. It's a very tight knit brand, and
Mhm.
maybe unlike some of the bigger brands, like we all have a lot of pride in the company.
Mhm.
It's not just like the logo we wear. We're a big piece of the product development. We're a big piece of the company as a whole. I mean, when we were in Zurich at the headquarters, I mean, it was amazing. Like everyone knew who we were. They
Mhm.
know the OAC. Like they're huge fans of us. And like, I think if you were a Nike team or an Adidas team and you walked into their headquarters, people probably wouldn't know who you are. And
Mhm.
so to see that with On, it's like pretty special. But like, then it's also some extra pressure that like we got to keep performing. Like these people are huge fans of us. The brand loves us. We got to go out and make teams. We got to go out and set records. I mean, that's like our end of the deal.
Yeah.
Um, but it's pretty cool. I mean, like just I've loved every part of being with this brand, and it's just even more special seeing how much people in the brand like love our team.
No, that's dope too. I mean, it's not just financial support, but definitely you feel like it's like a family vibe in it. That's always good to feel like that actual connection to who you're working with. But just to throw out there, dude, like the way you've been running this last year or so, I think that everybody will, no matter what brand you walk in, I think that they'd know you for sure. But yeah, it is definitely nice to kind of feel welcomed and know that like you're a key part of of this whole thing.
Mhm.
So obviously qualifying for the Olympics is huge. That's what dreams are made of, obviously. But you're a different runner than you were the day that you qualified for the Olympics as you were in May when you just won the pre classic and became the U.S. champion. Um, what's how did that differ for you on a personal level of achievement? How did that differ for you than the runner that qualified for the Olympics?
Yeah, so making the Olympics a year ago was like, I mean, that's like a lifelong
Yeah,
dream. And
yeah,
to go out and do that was like that was the goal. You accomplished it. Like that was it.
yeah.
And then going into the Olympics, I didn't have too many expectations other than just to like enjoy it, race hard, and see what I could do.
Hmm.
And then this year, going into Worlds, I mean, making World Championships was really the standard for my season. Like a year ago, it was the dream to make Olympics. This year, it's like if I don't make the World Championships, I really got to evaluate what I'm doing the rest of the summer in
Mm,
terms of my racing. Everything is planned around being at the World Championships in July.
yeah.
And so, on a personal level, making the team was like it's always a big deal. USA, it's a hard team to make, but the bigger thing was winning the US title. That
Hmm.
meant something like personally to me. Like
Hmm.
to go out there and win my first US title was super like again something that maybe I never dreamed I could have done, and to go out
Hmm.
and do it. Um, that was the big accomplishment. But in terms of making the team, I really like expected myself to do that, and I knew like if I'm at the level I think I'm at right now, I should make this team.
Yeah.
But now going into the world championships, it's not just go out there, run hard. It's like I have really high goals for myself there. Uh,
Yeah.
and, doing these races in Oslo, racing these international fields in Tokyo last year, I've
Hmm.
learned a lot. I had never raced an international field of that caliber before Tokyo a year ago.
Yep.
And so now it's like I know a little more what to expect when I get to the world championships this year, where last year it was just like, I have no clue what to expect. Just start the race. It's 10K. I've run 10K
Yeah.
before, but in terms of the style of racing,
Yeah.
how I stack up against some of the best runners in the world, I had no clue.
And so, because so you go into the pre-classic with this much higher standard for yourself, but so you ran, I think you ran 13:04 in a sound running right
Mhm.
this year, and I think I heard you say like at one point you finished your time was 13:06 I think in 2021,
Yep.
and you were like on the ground dead, and then you ran 13:04 2 seconds faster a year later and felt decent, like, and
Mhm.
felt good. And I mean, I'm not sure how much longer you could have run, but it is a big difference in 2 seconds faster. And for us that are watch you and are inspired by what you're doing, like, could you talk us through like that progression of going all out 13:06, great PR, but dead. to 13:04 after an injury
Mhm.
to this I'm good and I'm ready to train and continue to go for something and get on the team in July?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that, again, a similar, was I expected more out of myself.
Mm.
Like, when I ran 13:06, my PR before that was 13:29, so,
Yeah,
and
that's
it was like running 13:06 was like a dream, it was, like, uncharted, something I'd never, I had no clue what I was gonna run. I coulda run '06, I coulda run 13:15, like, it just I didn't know. And so, yeah, this year when I went out to run the 5K, like 13:06, it's like you don't want to run slower than that. That's why I ran a year ago. I want to get faster. But the race played out like a bit differently. It was kind of slow early on and finished really fast. And so I was, kind of encouraged that we didn't just run all out from the gun, and that would have put me on the ground. But I think if we would have run a similar style, I think I would have been under 13 that day if we went out faster.
Mhm,
So to run faster than the year prior in more of like a tactical style race was pretty encouraging.
mhm,
Um, but again, it just goes back to like kind of what you expect out of yourself, where how you look at yourself as a runner, and just having those higher standards based off what you did a year ago, and thinking like, okay, I should be better than a year ago, even with the injury. Workouts are going great. So yeah, it was just kind of like I expected that out of myself to be able to do that.
no, I think that that's dope, and I think that it's like, how do you, I guess, how would you say to someone, like, if you were to put on a coaching hat, like, what would you say to someone that's like, hey, I'm trying to PR in the marathon or half or 5K in the fall. How do you go about building that confidence, step by step, or little by little? I mean, you don't have to walk me through step by step, but little by little, to maybe get to the starting line in the fall with a different feel.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that when a race like that is so far out, like even if it's 2 months out, 3 months out, I think it
Mhm,
can be intimidating to like look at all this time and think, that's you're telling me I got to be I want to be in the best shape of my life in 3 months. Like
mhm,
it's a long ways away. A lot happens in 3 months in life and running and everything. And so my approach to it is always just taking it day by day and looking at my workout for the day. All the little side things you do like prehab and like that give you confidence, and just taking it day by day, and then all of a sudden those days stack on top of each other and you're getting close to race day, then you can kind of start saying, okay, now the race is in a week, and like I've had all these good days in a row, I've been stacking this consistency, now I can think about the race. And so like in my recovery process from injury, looking at I didn't look at the sound running race, I didn't just think about that race every day, I
yeah,
was thinking about my workout, I was thinking about every day, what am I doing
yeah,
to gain that confidence back.
yeah,
'Cause I was doing, I would do these workouts like right when I was coming back early on, and you would never even dream of running a 5K PR, but you're knowing that this is part of the process, and if I can do this workout well, then my next workout's going to be even better.
mhm.
And those little steps along the way, getting that little bit of confidence every day, I think is super important. And then eventually you can look at the race day, and then you just have that like sense of confidence that you've stacked all that consistent training, consistent um, preparation for the race day.
No, I think that that's great. I mean, because having you do want to have like that one big thing out there, but sometimes it can be so overwhelming, or like you said, or you could be so attached to that one day that you're not really living in today, and you're not really focusing on like maximizing this workout as the thing you're supposed to do. Because I've kind of joked before where it's like you'll be running a tempo run earlier in the training block or something, and you're running at your marathon pace or whatever pace you're supposed to, and you're like, how can I possibly run this for 26 miles? Or like, there's no way. Like, I can at this point I can barely do 6. And the thing I have to tell myself is that on the schedule today it says 6 miles at this pace, not
Mhm.
26. So that's
Yeah,
all you have to do is today, and you can't expect yourself to be 3 months out from now fit. So I love the fact that even you on a professional level take it day by day instead of like this big grand scheme.
yeah. Well, I mean, I remember there was one day in Florida where we were at training camp very early on after my injury, and we had like 6 times a mile. And I felt pretty good about the workout. It was a very hard workout, but then I looked at the pace and I was like, wow, this is like 20 seconds a mile slower than I need to run for 10K. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like not even in the ballpark.
Yeah.
But it was like that was the assignment today, and it's going to make me better for the next one. And eventually those times come down, you get fitter and you gain that confidence. But yeah, it's not always good to compare your workouts 3 months out to what you need to do on race day.
Yeah, not a good idea. And then or you can hit those paces now, if you pushed it, but then now you have to try to maintain that from now till race.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a process to getting ready for race day. It's why training plans aren't a week long.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those would be that'd be an intense week if it was a week long.
Yeah.
And so I heard you also before it mentioned, talk about the race in the Prefontaine, and you at one point you're like, towards the end of the race, you're feeling good. I mean, like you said, it was a little slower than that you guys got out a little slower than you maybe imagined, and it was more tactical.
Mhm.
But you were just kind of like expecting, something to happen differently than it did.
Mhm.
And I guess, like, I mean, I didn't hear like you were. I didn't when I was listening to it, I didn't feel like you were not confident in yourself, but it was just like you were kind of thinking about outside, the external forces. Like, is Grant going to come around? Who's going to pass? And who
Mhm.
you're kind of expecting that. And can you kind of tell that last 2 laps of that again, just so we can kind of get a feel for
Yeah.
that? 'Cause I
Yeah.
thought that
So
was
um, the whole race was very tactical, a lot of shoving around, a lot of, jockeying for position. And we got to about, 2 laps to go, and I heard my coach yell for me to go to the front of the race, which was something I was not planning to do. I really just wanted to try and, come around with 100 meters to go and win the race. But I didn't really think, I wasn't in a great spot tactically at the moment, so I just did it. I just moved up to the front and I just led the race. I picked it up a little bit, but not too much. I was kind of like cautious that I had to save enough energy to be able to kick at the end. But I was just, running, which a pace I didn't think was crazy fast, but I was just the whole time I'm expecting someone to come around me and really pick it up. Just because I knew how good the people in the race were, I knew the caliber of the athletes, and it just wasn't happening. I mean, like 400 meters to go, I was really expecting someone just to blow by me and run, a 52-second last lap. And then with, 300 to go, still no one was going by me. And then 200 to go. And it wasn't until about 200 to go that I thought, I just need to run for home. I need to stop thinking about the people behind me and start thinking about the finish line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, then we got to 100 to go, and Grant kind of pulled up on my shoulder. And my whole approach then was just, kind of again expecting someone to pull up on my shoulder. But if you're expecting that, you know, then my plan was to kind of try and match their speed, and
Hmm.
then just kind of go by them at the line. And it worked out very well. It doesn't always work out like that, but yeah, it was just, I guess that was a moment to me that showed like maybe I'm a better runner than I was giving myself credit for,
Mm.
because I was just so focused on the people behind me, like waiting for them to go around me and pass me. It just like has happened a lot in my career. I mean, that's the first time I've won a professional race. I haven't won that many races in my life, even in college. And so, I've always been kind of in the mix. But again, it's like people blow by me maybe at the end, and then they win the race, and maybe I'm second or third. And so I was just kind of waiting for that to repeat itself. But I guess that's kind of been the story of my spring so far. Is I've been really kind of surprising myself a little bit with where I expect to be, and then kind of actually, you know, showing that I'm a little better than maybe I expect. And so that was definitely one of those moments when I was able to actually win that race. Um, that was like, wow, that hasn't happened too often for me.
Well, I mean, if you had to pick a first win in your professional career, I don't think you could. I don't even think you'd imagine that would have been the first win. So, congratulations on that for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the U.S. title as my
Yeah,
first one is like pretty pretty ideal.
yeah. I mean, yeah. You couldn't have mapped that out any better.
No.
Have you watched that race back? Like, have you watched the?
Yeah, I usually go back and watch my races like maybe a week later or something, kind of let myself kind of forget what happened a little bit, and then go back and just try and learn from it. Because
Yeah,
like I was saying, tactically that was just like a battle. It wasn't even like running; it was like pushing and shoving and trying to
yeah,
get
no.
position. And so you really got to learn from that though. And so yeah, going back and watching the races and kind of reflecting on the result, good or bad, is always, I think, super important. I mean, a lot of times when races go well, you just kind of move on. But
Mm.
like even still in a good race, there's probably things that you could have done better.
Yeah, and cause so the reason why I asked that because I've watched it and from the outside looking in, I'm like, this dude's got it. Like, I mean, the whole, and it looked like the plan was for you to do exactly what you did in the last two laps. Like it. Yeah, I know you said it wasn't the plan. You were just trying to like reposition and all that, but from the outside looking in, you looked like you knew what you were doing, man. You look like you're a professional for sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, yeah, like it's nice that you had a little more confidence in me than I had in myself at that moment.
Yeah, well, just know that in Eugene, that at least me, I don't know about everybody else, but me, I've got confidence in you, man. You could do
I
it for sure.
appreciate that.
And just really quick, I know we talked about our sponsor, your sponsor, and then also mine, and then the sponsor for the show, is UCAN. So how has you talked about nutrition earlier and how important it is to get the proper fueling in before, during, and after a run,
Mhm.
or a workout or whatever. How has UCAN played a role in your career in the I don't know how long you've been on their team, but like how's it played a role with you?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been on with Team UCAN since just after the Olympics last year,
Hmm.
and it's been, again, like I was saying, with building those routines of good nutrition, those routines that you can kind of rely on. UCAN's been a huge part of that. With I've created, like, before bed I always mix like the UCAN protein plus energy, because I always struggled getting enough energy to sleep through the night, enough food in without waking up in the middle of the night feeling hungry. And so that was like the biggest thing once I started with UCAN. That was like the biggest change. Like immediately, I was able to sleep through the night and not be hungry. But then even now, like when I was traveling to Europe, I always carry the bars with me, because you're on a 10-hour flight and those little meals they give you aren't going to sustain you till you get to Europe. And so I think the biggest thing is just having like the the superstars fuel to sustain you. Like it's been really good, like going from a run to a lift. Like you can just like have a bar and it's going to sustain you, like have enough fuel. Because in the past I would just try and gut it out until lunchtime, like make it to the next meal or whatever. I wasn't maybe thinking the same way. But so UCAN's been like a really good like resource. I would say like almost in a sense like a crutch, like when you're not able to always make like a good
Yeah.
nutritious meal to sustain you through, the supercharge energy is able to give you that energy without a crash, that you can, do your workout, do your lift, or, until you're actually able to like go make a proper meal. Or when your routine gets out of whack, you can still keep that consistency on the road.
Man, I thought it was just me that was like, because if I'm like rushing last minute and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to eat properly or something, I'll like hurry up and I'll grab like the edge really quick
Mhm.
and take that. And it seems like I haven't had those feelings of like, oh man, I should have had something to eat, because those can really mess up a good tempo run or something like
Mhm.
that if you're like starving or your blood sugar's low or whatever. So UCAN has played a huge role in mine for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, or like if like you have a run and you're rushing somewhere quick, and like you just like have a UCAN bar or mix up a protein shake, and it's like, yeah, then you're able to keep recovering, feeling good, versus just like having that crash and just feeling like you're, you mean your training is really 24 hours a day, your recovery is 24 hours a day, and so you need to keep fueling 24 hours a day. And so yeah, UCAN's just been super nice for the convenience factor of like being able to keep consistent on those routines.
Yeah, no, I've been kind of like on like Team UCAN, or I've been using UCAN for maybe 6 months or so right now, and use it for a whole marathon training block. Use it during the marathon,
Mhm.
and I just love like how it's on a good day, they have everything that you need,
Mhm.
start to finish. Like you got the pre-energy workout, then you have the edge during the workout, then you have the protein plus energy after the workout,
Mhm.
and you have like they have snacks in between. You don't have to go to all these different places and sources to match to see what works out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I would notice too, like, so for me, like obviously I'm not training for the marathon, and so like my mileage is like on a daily average like a bit less. But even with the long run, like I'll run up to 20 miles sometimes, and like
Crazy.
I was like noticing I would always get to like 15 or 16 feeling all right. And it was like always just like the last four, I felt like I was just doing so much damage on my body, like trying to finish the run because I just had no fuel. And so I started taking a UCAN edge before, and then I would often take one at 10 miles into the run. And it was like I'd finish the run just feeling and like obviously you're tired from the run, but like from an energy standpoint and like fueling standpoint, I'd always feel super good. And I'd be able to like I think that that just sets you ahead in your recovery.
Yeah, no, it's been really great. Like, and I just love, I absolutely love the brand. I love the company. And you can did when you decided to go with UCAN, did you compare? Did you think about like how On has been instrumental in the type of company On is to with like the type of environment that UCAN has as well? Because they seem, from what I've known to talk to people at On and also UCAN, it seems like they're really close to like the same vibe.
Yeah, they really are. Like they're very like tight knit companies and companies that like it's not just like, oh, I want to, I want another sponsor or something. It's like a company that you can believe in, a product that you actually feel like is helping you.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would say that's like a good comparison. Is that yeah, it's like it's very close knit. Like with On and both with UCAN, and so like they're helping you along with your journey
Yeah.
in running, and so yeah, that in that way they're very similar.
Okay, okay. Well, let's do this giveaway. Then I think I have like one question for you after that, and then we'll let you go because I know you have to go continue your recovery. You already did a workout, did your
Yeah,
massage, and now
yeah. We got another run in a few hours. So.
oh man, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. People, yeah, you guys got your crazy doubles. I'm not at that point yet in my training block. So I'm gonna need you to pick a number between 1 and 7, and the number that you pick, that person will win the marathon training bundle. It has a pack of you can't. I mean, it has a pack of you can. It has a pack of Edge. It has Hydrate, the protein plus energy. I think it has bars as well. So it's a full pack to get people started in their training or their marathon training blocks. 'Cause most people are going to be running in the fall, so
Mhm.
this is like perfect time to test out fueling and all that good stuff. So please pick a number between 1 and 7 so we can have a winner here.
All right, I'm gonna pick 6.
6. Okay, 6. That's so funny. So 6 is Kathleen Bailey. You are you are the winner of the training. The reason I'm laughing is because that's my mother. So that's funny. So mom, you have won the trading bundle, and awesome, awesome. So thanks so much for joining me, Joe. Um, as you prepare to head off to Eugene, um, can you just kind of let us know like what your thoughts are, and then just so everybody knows, this is a part one of the Joe and Tommy show. And we're going to be doing a second episode in Eugene after you race. But I'd love to, since I won't be able to talk to you between now and then, what are your thoughts going into the race, and how are you, I guess, preparing for this one a little differently maybe than others?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing versus Tokyo versus this year is having it be on home soil.
Hmm.
And so there's definitely a little extra pressure to perform, but at the same time, there's comfort that I've raced at Hayward Field a lot of times. And so I think that I'm really just approaching it a lot like the Prefontaine 10K. It's the same location. I'm flying in 2 days before, just trying to keep those variables all very consistent, like what's worked for me in the past.
Hmm.
Um, and that's one reason I think that like being based here in the U.S. and then racing the World Championships here, we got a bit of an advantage. Like last year we had to fly all the way to Tokyo, and
Yeah.
I never left the country at that point, and so it was like just so many new experiences. Where this year it's like, all right, I've been to Hayward a lot of times, I've raced there a lot of times. Let's not try anything crazy. Let's just do what's worked in the past, and I think it'll be a good race in Eugene.
And yeah, you definitely have the home court advantage here. The pre was in Hayward, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So like the last time you raced on that track, it was a good day. So I'm sure that's in the back of your mind too, man. But really want to say congratulations on your career so far. It's only been 2 years. It seems like it's probably flown by for you. But watching especially within the last 6 months to a year, I mean, things have been really happening in a major way for you. And watching you race and watch you put your heart out there in front of us all is just really inspiring. And can't wait to see what you do in Eugene. Thank you to everyone that's watching the show. And make sure that if you're watching this, make sure that you run, eat, sleep, and repeat, and be well. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you so much.